Welcome, degenerates, to Place Your Bets. I'm Tyler James. He's the one and only Eric Hansen. We cover Notre Dame football, recruiting, and more for InsideNDSports.com on the Rivals Network. And we love to make Notre Dame football prop bets for bragging rights. It's too bad we didn't actually have action on these prop bets, Eric. We fared pretty well last weekend with us both going 4-1. And the Insider Lounge also went 3-2. So they had a strong showing. You and I split our prop bets that we disagreed on. You picked Jack Kaiser's tackle total correctly, and I correctly predicted the Drew Pine interception. So that's where we disagreed, and that's where we ended up. You, Eric, are now knocking on the door of 500. Are you ready to get the champagne out?
Well, I'm ready to not have to hide if people have seen the videos. So
the Insider Lounge is hanging on to second place. I wish I could take that 16-9 record I have there to the register, but it's not worth much other than bragging rights between us. And let's see if we can stay hot with some prop bets for Notre Dame's night game on Saturday against Stanford. So the first one I have for us, Eric, is over under 3.5 sacks for Notre Dame's defense.
Well, so you're looking at 4, and that's a lot, even with a bad offensive line. However, Stanford definitely lives up to that billing. They're 128th nationally in sacks allowed, and they're missing, or they're expected to miss a couple of offensive linemen more because of injuries. I think they're getting possibly getting one of their linemen back. But even when they've had their best 5, they've really struggled. And I think they're going to be behind in this game a lot. I think Notre Dame want to kind of show off that pressure. So I'm actually going to go over.
Yeah, I'm going to go over as well. I think Notre Dame will ratchet that pressure up, playing from ahead, forcing Stanford to have to throw the ball, try to get back in the game, playing at home and in front of what I'm interested to see sort of what the crowd is like. Maybe it's a hostile crowd for a night game. Things have turned around a little bit here after the first 2 games of the season. So I'm going to predict over as well. I think the defensive line is hungry to stack up some more sacks.
Well, they'll certainly have more hours to get revved up for the game, if you know what I mean.
That's right. Next one, who will lead Notre Dame in carries?
You know, it would be funny if it was Chris Tyree after last week. But I don't think this is his type of game. Stanford is, again, that they're not very good on defense. And this feels like a Diggs estimate game to me, especially kind of closing it out. I think Chris will get some carries early. I think those two will finish it out. And I'm just going to go with Diggs. I'll pick him.
All right, yeah. Logan Diggs led Notre Dame in carries last week for the first time. Audric Estime led the team in carries the previous 2 games. So I'm going to go with Audric Estime. I think he's the one I think I trust the most in Notre Dame's backfield. I like what Logan Diggs is giving Notre Dame's offense, and I think they can use him in some special ways in terms of using him in combination with either Audric Estime or Chris Tyree. So I think there will be plenty of carries to go around for all of them. Tommy Reese was asked this week about how he manages to spread those carries. It's like, well, it helps when we run the ball well. It's easier to spread carries around for all 3 running backs when you run the ball well. And I think Notre Dame will be able to run the ball well again against Stanford this week. Next one I have, over under 222.5 passing yards for Stanford quarterback Tanner McKee.
Well, I mean, that's their offense. They don't have a great running game. In fact, they don't even have a good one. They did at the beginning of the year when E.J. Smith was healthy. He was averaging about 7 yards a carry. He hasn't played in the last 3 games, and he's not listed on their depth chart. So it's really going to be in Tanner McKee's hands. He's usually able to get into the 2s and pretty decent amount. I think he's had 1 game over 300. I think Notre Dame is going to keep them under 100 yards rushing, and Tanner McKee will get lots of opportunities. So I'm gonna say slightly over.
All right, I'm going to go under. I've liked what I've seen from Notre Dame's secondary so far this season, even though there have been some obvious mistakes, but I do think overall that the secondary has played well. Pair that with the pass rush that we expect Notre Dame to get against Stanford. I think Notre Dame has a pretty good chance of holding Tanner McKee under 223 passing yards. So he's only been held under that total 6 times in the last 2 seasons. He's averaging 238 yards per game in that time frame. One of those games was against Notre Dame last season. He had 172 yards, and Notre Dame is allowing 195 yards per game. So I'm gonna go with Notre Dame's defense continuing to play well against the pass and holding Tanner McKee under 222.
You better hope Tariq Bracy's healthy.
That would certainly help, but I don't know that Stanford has a lot of receivers that can threaten Notre Dame's defense. Next prop bet: will Notre Dame score more touchdowns in the red zone than field goals?
They didn't last week. I think they will this week again because Stanford doesn't defend the pass very well. They're awful against the run. And I think Notre Dame will be able to, even without a lot of creativity in the red zone, will be able to punch most of those in.
All right, yeah, we're in agreement there. I'm going with yes as well. Notre Dame, despite the struggles last week, has been fairly good in the red zone until the BYU game. Notre Dame had scored 11 touchdowns on its 16 red zone trips and added 3 field goals. So I don't think that's going to be a continued issue for Notre Dame, at least against Stanford. So I will predict more touchdowns than field goals in the red zone. And next, we have over under 46.5 yards per punt for Notre Dame's John Sott.
And I saw that he got added to the Ray Guy watch list today.
Yeah, he wasn't one of Ray's guys, one of the top 8 punters of the week, but he was added to the Ray Guy Award watch list. So the punting world is now paying a little bit more attention to John Sott.
Well, and justifiably so. I mean, you can knock people that are in the top 10 if they don't have a good net punting average. And when you vote for Ray Guy, they really emphasize that. But Notre Dame is 7th in net punting. He's 3rd individually. So, yeah, he should be there. I think this is a game, again, because of Stanford's bad run defense, bad defense overall. When Notre Dame has to punt, I don't think they're going to be around their own 20, 25. It's going to happen when they're closer to midfield, and he may have to hold back a little bit. So I'm going to go under.
All right. I am going over. I wonder if the Ray Guy Award has been holding against him that he hasn't been punting a lot the last couple of games. I think he's only punted 3 times and averaging 55 yards in those last 2 games. So maybe the key for John Sott's punting average is punting fewer times. So I don't think Notre Dame's going to have to punt a ton against Stanford. So I'm going to predict the over for John Sott, the Harvard graduate transfer who has had a pretty good season so far for Notre Dame. And lastly, Eric, what is your final score prediction for Notre Dame-Stanford?
Stanford has been able to score against just about everybody this year. They've been able to get it into the 20s, and they've given up, usually something in the 40s in terms of, other than their game against Colgate that they won against the FBS competition. They've mostly been there. Last week, they only gave up 28 to Oregon State, but it was against a backup quarterback, and they coughed up 18 points in the 4th quarter, including a big touchdown with 13 seconds left. So I think Notre Dame ought to be able to get into the 40s. And I still think Notre Dame still is working out some issues on their defense and will probably play a lot of guys if they get a big lead. So I'll say 42-20.
Well, you kind of petered out there for the prediction. Say the prediction with some gusto.
42-20.
All right.
I'm worn out from having to do poetry, help my 10-year-old grandson with poetry homework. So I'm worn out.
You didn't have any rhymes for us there at the end. We're in the same ballpark. I have Notre Dame 38, Stanford 21. I think Stanford will be able to score a little bit and get into the end zone. And I think Notre Dame will have a lot of success moving the football. I'm not quite confident that they will reach the 40s, but get pretty close to it. So 38-21 is what I have for the Notre Dame.
I thought you said 48 first. Okay, 38-21. Gotcha.
38-21. Yeah, make sure you write that down so you can just
do we get points for for getting the score?
I don't
Well,
grade the scores because I don't know. I mean, I can do whether or not we got the right team right or the prediction right.
boy, I'll tell you, Bill Belinsky, who's our new basketball writer, he was pretty impressed with my 27-21 prediction from last week.
Well, I think you are impressed with it too. That's why you brought it up. So I'm proud of you for doing that. But yeah, no, we keep this. We don't keep track of the scores for our standings. So
Okay.
if you have a good way of doing that, I would be open to that. But I've just have sort of kept that out and let our fans hold us to whether or not we get the score right. So
Okay.
that's it for Place Your Bets this week. Comment below your score prediction and prop bet sides. If you're an Inside ND Sports subscriber, make sure you log your predictions on the Insider Lounge. If you want more video content from us, like this video and subscribe to our channel. We'll be back on YouTube Monday night at 7 p.m. for Monday Night Live to recap the Stanford game. And we'll again be back later next week for our UNLV edition of Place Your Bets.